Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Jenny Tossner and I am one of the co-authors for this book, Empowered, Sexy, and Free. And thank you so much for picking up this book. I hope that you are truly inspired by all of the courageous stories and the vulnerable shares of how we have overcome seemingly insurmountable odds to go on to live these beautiful lives that we have now. And no, it's not without pain or fear or drama or trauma for some of us, but I think that when we look at those things full on in the face, it's the first step towards becoming truly empowered, sexy, and free. So if you've read my chapter, you know that I am what I consider a survivor and thriver of gun violence. And what that means to me is that over a decade ago, when I was a first-year teacher, I was living in a tiny Yupik Eskimo community on the Bering Sea, and I was in a school shooting, which I talk about at length in the book. And I was so identified with being victim at that time, and overcoming PTSD was the longest journey that I've had towards healing. But doing those deeper layers and levels of healing has really taught me so much about life. One, I don't believe that I was ever the victim. And I don't mean this in this sort of like weird victim shaming world that we sometimes live in, but I do believe that I was never not the creator of my life. Taking the reins in my own hands and choosing to live my life on purpose gave me a sense of satisfaction and power for sure, but I do believe that I was always doing it. I just wasn't aware. And so I'm very much a stand for women who have gone through traumatic events to really look at how those things, like sometimes they'll just, an instant can totally shift and change our lives, for better or worse or otherwise, but I do believe that everything happens on purpose. There's so much happening at the level of soul contracts that we just don't get to see, and we're not really privy to unless you have a deep spiritual practice like I now have cultivated for myself. But in the meantime, we can go through these experiences and we look at life like it's happening to us, and that feels awful, and it can be very, very confusing, and it leaves us in this never-ending loop that plays around in our minds, which leaves us screaming, why? Why did this happen to me? Why did I have to be the one to go through this? Fill in the blank. And so a lot of the women that I serve have gone through some sort of past pain and trauma, and what I've realized is there's a lot of trauma in the world that is undiagnosed. And not that everything needs to have a mental or like a medical diagnostic behind it. I don't exactly believe that, but I think a lot of women are suffering from trauma that they've never really recognized it as trauma, and so they've never had the level of healing that goes with healing a traumatic soul wound. And when I look at my life and I look at all the moments from junior high and being bullied, even though it wasn't really bullied back then, it still was, or being catcalled, and all the ways that we are now connecting with our Me Too stories, and sexual abuse and sexual harassment are just coming out of the closets. I do believe that we have a time, a space today to really recognize all the ways that trauma has actually been part of our collective world and how much it's been part of our own individual systems. And now we have the opportunity to talk about it and the opportunity to heal from it. So I'm actually going to lead you through a meditation that I like to use. It's one of the things that really helps me make sense and make peace with my own past pain and trauma. So for me, as you know, I'm very vocal about having gone through this school shooting and having identified as a victim, and having gone through PTSD and recovering from that. And I used to see things as happening to me. I no longer see things as happening to me. I see them as happening for me and also by me. And I can even look back and see now at this in current time, I can look back and see how I don't want to say the word invited, but I actually was the author of my story all along. I truly believe in my bones that this school shooting was something that just matched a soul wound that I had and that I came into this lifetime to heal. So I can feel nothing but gratitude for it now. And even for the gunman, I can feel nothing but gratitude for that person, because he put me on this path, and this path has led me to the life that I have today. And yes, it's taken a lot of healing, but I do believe that our trauma, our pain expands us. It expands our capacity to feel. It expands our capacity to give and receive love. And that expanded state is what we actually need to be able to reach those higher states of consciousness that we're all trying to get to. And I like to think that The sole purpose for each and every one of us is exactly the same. We are all purposing together. And so I hope that you were able to see pieces of yourself through my story, though your story is your own and completely different. It's my intention to start to raise awareness of like all these unhealed wounds within us and how we just like repeat these patterns, or we repeat these family traumas, and we repeat these stories until we finally bring enough awareness to them so that they can start to be healed. And with that, I would love to just share in my meditation with you. And this meditation is very simple and quick. All you need to do is get into a comfortable space. And so I just invite you to do that right now. Just get into a comfortable space. You can put this on like a speaker if you can, just so you don't have to do anything with your hands. Just receive, just listen. So get yourself into a comfortable seated position. I like to put my feet on the floor so I'm grounded and my spine is straight, sitting straight up. And I like to put one hand over my heart and the other hand over my stomach, my lower abdomen, like right where my womb space is. For women, this is where we hold a lot of our pain and trauma. Grief gets stored in the lungs, and trauma often gets stored in the chest, which is why people have panic attacks when they're suffering from, or anxiety of any kind when they're suffering from a lot of trauma. It's like really stored in the respiratory system. So just putting one hand there and just feeling and giving yourself love. We're going to make like a closed circuit, right? So we're just, all of the energy we generate in our system goes back into us for our own healing. And then the other hand goes on your lower abdomen right above your womb space. And if you're a man, you can do this too. It's totally fine. This is your solar plexus area. And for a lot of us, especially women, we are stopped with our own creation because we are so in judgment, or we're not fully in control, or we're not fully aware of our own creative potential, or we have been beaten down for so many generations, who knows? But this is your chance to heal that. This is your chance to heal that story. And so by putting one hand over your womb space or your solar plexus, this gives you a little bit more healing around your own creative, regenerative space, and knowing that you can create the life that you came here to have. And we do that through healing our deepest wounds. And once we have cleared the space in the shadow, we have just more space for the light to enter in. And so from this place, connecting deeply with your breath, and I'd love for you to close your eyes and breathe in through your nose. Breathing in and in and in, letting your lungs fill up completely. And release through your mouth. Breathing in again through your nose. Holding a little bit longer this time. Feeling your lungs fill up completely, releasing, stretching, and release. Breathing in again through your nose. Holding. And release. Just practice breathing this way, as if everything was just a little bit behind, being generous with your breath. And as you're breathing in this space, I want you to just see yourself bobbing on the surface of the waves. You're in a giant ocean, and you're watching the sunlight play in ripples on the ocean surface, and you're just seeing these little waves, and you're just bobbing there, happy as a clam, almost like if you can envision yourself what an otter must feel like, happy, playful, bobbing on the surface of your own ocean. And the ocean here represents your primordial nature, the very, very primal essence of you. And I want you to imagine now going down under the surface of the water. And now you're in a diving bell or some kind of submarine, and you're sinking down, down, and down. Now you're past the ripples of sunlight filtered through the water, and now you're sinking down near the kelp beds. And I want you to imagine that your own personal suffering, the deepest you've ever gone into your own personal journey of suffering, I want you to imagine what that would look like, traveling down to the ocean floor of your own personal bottom, the lowest of the low that you've ever gone. And just being with whatever comes up, you might notice that it's complete and utter darkness. You might notice that there are strange creatures down there. You might notice that there's deep underground or underwater deep sea vents, and it's fine. Just seeing it without judgment, just being okay with what is, seeing yourself in the suffering that you've already gone through in this lifetime, and being willing to be okay with it in this density, in this kind of contraction, just seeing how far you would go. And when you've sunk to your personal low, just stop and mark, where is this at, where it led you? Looking around, noticing with all the details how far down you've ever come. And now you start to feel something shift. Something shifts and moves, and you start to rise. You're rising now, rising and rising and rising, and you're still in your diving bell, it's still safe, but now you're rising quickly through all these underwater layers in the ocean. And you're rising so quickly, and now you're back into the sun-dappled waves, and all of a sudden you shoot from the top of the ocean and you keep going, and now your diving bell has become a rocket ship, and it keeps going and going and going higher and higher and higher this time. Just as far as you have gone down, down, down into the ocean, now you're going up, up, up into the stratosphere. And feel yourself rising to the same extent that you've ever gone down to that dark place. Feel yourself now rising into the light. And when you feel like you have reached your own personal arc of redemption, just stop. Just notice where you landed. Look at where your rocket ship has taken you and look around. What do you see in this place? What do you notice about yourself? What do you notice about the journey that you've been on? How has your suffering expanded you so that you can occupy this space even more? Breathing in through your nose and holding in your lungs. And release. Breathing in again through your nose, letting whatever grief comes up just wash through you. What is yours will be yours. What is not you moves through. So moving that through your system and release. Breathing in again through your nose and holding. And release. And you can open up your eyes and look around the room. And just notice that the beautiful life that you have access to today is in direct relationship to the level of suffering you've ever endured. We often think that in terms of achieving higher states of consciousness or living these happy, peaceful lives that we get to go up, when actually the opposite is true. We only truly become free when we're willing to go down into the pit of our despair and see it and feel it and be it and forgive what we find there. And this is the purpose of shadow work. The purpose of shadow work is not to be scared. The purpose of shadow work is not to stay there addicted to our own suffering. The purpose of our shadow work is to clear the space for more light to enter. And the more we do this brave work of diving into our shame, diving into our fear, diving into our past pain and trauma, the more we can see that with the light of love. And the more we can clear that heavy vibrational density that lives within our systems, the more we can expand ourselves to occupy these more beautiful, light, higher frequencies and ways of being. So that is my gift for you. You can use this meditation whenever you're in a tricky and trying moment. And I would really love to challenge you not to shy away from your fear, not to shy away from your pain, but to just dive into it and embrace it fully, knowing that it serves you and knowing that it was created by you and knowing that it's part of your life story and that this is not your final resting place. Your final resting place is truly, truly, truly to live a life of light and love. And this is part of a journey towards truly becoming empowered, sexy, and free. So I hope you enjoy our book. Thank you so much for being here, and take care.